I just realized I never actually went through these files, and I'm sure people who watched the previous video are probably like, "Hey Graves, you know, you spent all that time actually getting them. Are we gonna actually look at these things?" And then I realized, oh wait, I haven't actually done that. I should probably actually look at these and check them out. So yeah, consider this one final little extra bonus. We'll go through and go through these right quick. This probably won't take more than a few minutes, I'd imagine. Well, it might take a few minutes, but it's not going to take that long. But yeah, I realized I was like, wait a minute. You guys that have stuck with it for this long, you should actually get to see them. Obviously, like I've said, several dozen times at this point, it's obviously better if you play through it yourself. You find all the stuff on your own. But for those of you who did stick it out all the way to the end, yeah, I didn't want to leave you guys in the lurch and be wondering what were on those files. I'm pretty sure these are all just everything else is the stuff we've seen, because these are all the safe keys. These are all the files we picked up. So yeah, it's literally just like we saw the it's accelerators, just two of them. Yeah, and then that's just the memory card. So yeah, the only thing we didn't actually go through and watch were all the secret files. So let's go through these right quick. So the AB room, where you play the AB game, appears to be an elevator car. 6 AB rooms in the warehouse on floor A. From the left, they're referred to as first, second, third. The interior of each room is identical to the others, with a voting device on the wall and a hatch in the ceiling. I'm wondering, some of these may not actually be, now that we've actually seen most of the stuff in the game, this may not actually be all that interesting. I don't know if it's going to tell us stuff we didn't already know, or if it's going to be like stuff we would have learned eventually anyway. But we're going to find out. So, AB gate refers to the door of the AB room. Most elevator doors open horizontally, but this one opens and closes vertically. Most elevators include a safety feature that prevents the door from closing if anything obstructs it. These doors have no such safety feature, of course. Bracelet 1. Each participant has a bracelet attached to their left wrist. If a participant breaks the rules or fails to fulfill certain conditions, then a set of 4 needles in the bracelet will inject them with 2 chemicals in succession. Only 2 situations which will cause the bracelet to come off: the person wearing it completes the game and escapes, or the part of the person wearing it stops beating. Attempting to break the bracelet or attempting to force it off will be considered a violation of the rules. AI is short for artificial insemination, which is a process by which the eggs are fertilized without the use of a male organ. It is commonly used in the breeding of dairy cattle and pigs. It has also been... Oh, I'm being told that in this case AI stands for artificial intelligence, which is another thing entirely. Okay, so they slipped a few jokes in here as well, apparently. Have a nice... Oh, the words that 03 says before he leaves. There's a have a nice trap, traitor. Do I remember hearing that one? Oh, anyways. I know at one point he also said, like, have a nice tragedy. Quantum computer, a device built by Tom Quant... It's actually a lie. A quantum computer is a highly advanced machine that uses quantum phenomena such as superposition and entanglement to perform calculations. Say, for example, that you want to determine the prime factors of 5183. A von Neumann-style computer, let's call him Paul, would say, can I divide it by 2, 3, 5, and just run through the numbers like that until it got the answer. The computer, not the imaginary commuter, would just look at 5183 and say, obviously it's 71 times 73. A traditional computer with n bits can only be in one of 2 to the n states at once, but a quantum computer with n qubits can be up to 2 to the n states simultaneously. This means a quantum computer can complete calculations that are currently impossible. It's amazing, Mr. Quan. Are you seeing anybody? Okay, so this is going to be a little goofy, apparently. Someone has written 2 Milkmen Go Comedy on the wall in the warehouse on floor A. Presumably it refers to a pair of milkmen visiting a comedy club. The sentence construction, however, is obviously wrong. There must be a reason why, which we find out eventually. The non-honorary game is a deadly game that 9 people have been forced to play. The official game is non-honorary game Ambidex Edition. This part of the non-honorary game, the participants also play the Ambidex game or AB game. The number 9 rules. Well, these are actually things we saw during the game. we went through those a few times because he would review them at some point. You open the door with 9 BP, play the AB game. Next to it's a card reader, slide the designated card key into it, and get the card keys behind the chromatic doors. Then there's the supplementary rules, which we opened several. I think we read through these several times too. Yeah, with all of the great rabbit puns. Now these were in every room in the first set of puzzle rooms, so everybody found those. In addition to each number, it'll say solo or pair. Right, 2 people who have the same color pair bracelets will share the same fate and must vote together as one. I guess this also conveniently solves the idea of how to have one group play against each other when you have 9 people, which, you know, if you just paired them up, if they were all solo, then like one person would have to sit out every round. So I guess this is an interesting way of resolving that particular problem. Bracelet points, we already know about. Yeah, if your BP is greater than 9, you open the door and escape. If your bracelet BP is 0, then needles built in the bracelet will activate. The number 9 doors in the floor of Warehouse A. Anyone with 9 or more BP can open the door and escape the non-ready game, so in this sense could be considered the ultimate goal. Once it closes, there's no way to open it again, although, as we found out later, the door on Warehouse B can be opened from the outside. Most of the people who escaped didn't think of that. The number 9 door cannot stay open more than 9 seconds. This is not strictly correct, however. The time period 03 is referring to as the time when the door was fully open. That means if one takes into account the time when the door is opening and when it's closing, it is open for somewhat more than 9 seconds. Yeah, there were a couple of endings where people would like duck through it as it was closing or whatever. At certain times, the sun, earth, and moon align in such a way that the moon is completely within the Earth's shadow. This causes the moon to appear reddish-brown in color as light from the sun passes the Earth's atmosphere and reflects off the moon's surface. Incidentally, the game refers to a lunar eclipse on New Year's Eve in 2028, which is, or rather will be, an actual event. It will be visible only in the Eastern Hemisphere at 1652 Universal Time. Huh. Well, if we're still all around in 8 years, we'll have to check that out. I'm sure fans of this game will be like, oh, it's time to go watch it. Or, you know, not be in Nevada where the thing happens and worry about the pandemic getting out. Silver Beta, one of the drugs used for the non-ready bracelets, an extremely powerful anesthetic. The first drug injected when a participant breaks one of the rules. It also appears in its sister title, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, created by Mr. H, who was the president of Cradle Pharmaceuticals and appeared in 999. He developed by extracting and purifying an alkaloid from a variety of mandrake. His high usage can lead to some side effects, including severe memory loss. It can also be aerosolized and used in an anesthetic or knockout gas. And then the tubocurarine, which comes up in this game, extremely powerful muscle relaxant, injected by the bracelets if a rule is broken. The tubocurarine is injected 9 minutes after the SOPA rule. It causes respiratory muscles to cease functioning. The body perishes from lack of oxygen. It's a component of some of the poisons used by the indigenous populations in South America who tip their arrows with poison when hunting. It can be counteracted with a cholinesterase inhibitor, but it's not clear if the non-ready game facility has this antidote available. We find out it does, eventually, so that may be in one of these later ones. ADAM's acronym for Automatic Diagnosis and Analysis Machine. The device uses nuclear magnetic resonance imaging to examine and diagnose anyone put into it. Similar to the MRI machines you might find in modern-day hospitals, only much smaller and more efficient. An advanced computer built into the device can automatically diagnose most issues and ailments. If the subject of diagnosis is already deceased, the ADAM can perform a virtual autopsy to determine the cause of death. So, yeah, we used that a few times. Here's this is just the newspaper bit that we read several times. 100,000 victims, immediate quarantine. When an epidemic spreads beyond a certain area, it becomes a pandemic. Some historical pandemics include cholera, typhoid fever, tuberculosis, the Black Plague, smallpox, and a certain other one that we're not going to mention. Certain influenza outbreaks have also reached pandemic or near-pandemic levels of infection. In Spain in 1918, an influenza outbreak was said to have been caused 40 to 50 million deaths. Radical 6, powerful virus whose word-wide spread is an integral part of the story. If you want to know what Radical and 6 mean, you just have to play the game and find out, right? Powerful syringe. Okay, so we did find this in a couple of the paths. There's a total of 7 varieties of chromatic doors. One for the following colors: the primary cyan, magenta, yellow, red, green, blue, white. The primary chromatic doors will open at a specified time. Participants can see how much time is left until the primary doors open by pressing the buttons on both sides of their bracelets. And the secondary ones must be met by the group that enters the primary door and for the secondary door to open. There must be 2 pair bracelets and 1 solo. The colors of all 3 bracelets must together form either the color of the door they are trying to enter or its complementary color. It's kind of hard to remember, so look at this instead. So yeah, this is basically the color combinations that Phi explained to us throughout the game. EU. System developed under a combination of physical, emotional, and situation attractiveness. It ranges from 0 to 20, where 20 might be Marilyn Monroe and 0 might be Gilbert Gottfried. For the curious, Danny Trejo rates 16 EU. Just being sexy does not guarantee a high EU rating. Not to be confused. What? I'm not quite sure where this came up in the game. I'd have to go back and watch through the videos again to figure out where this got mentioned. Presumably this was something else that came up in the game. I don't know. Some weird jokes they threw in, apparently. Speaking of which, collection of films that Tenmyoji has gathered. Their content isn't really explicit per se. They still aren't really appropriate for someone Quark's age. It should be noted that the term does not imply the videos contain grandpas or grandpa-like actors. Sigma's cat problem. Sigma has a strange verbal and possibly psychological tic which causes him to make cat puns whenever he talks about cats. The cause of this behavior seems to be an experience he had as a child. When Sigma was in preschool, there was a deserted house near his school that everyone called the Cat Mansion. He always loved cats, so every day he would visit the Cat Mansion and give the cats that lived there some of his lunch. One day he realized that he could understand what the cats were saying to one another. A magical black cat appeared and told him that it had given him this gift in exchange for giving food to its fellows. But, the magical cat said, "You can never tell anyone about your gift." The magical black cat warned, "If you do, you'll be cursed." But young Sigma is so happy about his newfound ability that he slipped and told a girl about it, so the black cat cursed him. His curse was to speak and only in cat puns for the rest of his life. Fortunately for him, a magical white cat came along soon afterward, felt the curse was a little too harsh, and lessened it so that he would only talk in cat puns when he talked about cats, and they lived happily ever after. Okay, so... right. There's some weird anecdotes in this section, so I guess it was worth coming back to read it just for these. Phone, a device that converts sound into electrical signals and transmits them over a wire so they can be decoded and played back on the other end. It's useful for speaking to people who are far away. The invention of the telephone is generally credited to Alexander Graham Bell in 1876, but there is dispute in some circles as to whether or not this is the truth. In the game, there's a phone in one of the cabins that you can't call outside the facility, but what if you try something like 5309 or 6969? Other numbers might do some other things, so give it a try. Well, now I kind of wonder. Hold on. Oh, right, I forgot about that. It was the crew quarters? What's in door 1? Wow. Hello, can I help you? Hey, got your number on the... Oh, man. Huh, she hung up. Well done, game. Well played. I'm almost a little frightened as to what this one's going to be. The time of your life, sweetheart. Only $24.95 a minute. Wow. It's a little too rich for my blood, thanks. Okay then. back to the... Where was it? Okay, back to more of these. The golem is an anthropomorphic creature from Jewish folklore. Golems are made from clay and will obey any orders given to them by their creators without question. Although they tend to take instructions very literally, a golem is created by performing a holy ritual, then kneading the clay into the shape of a person, chanting a spell, and writing the Hebrew word emet, truth, on the golem's forehead. Erasing the E changes the word to met, which is the Hebrew for death. Doing this deactivates the golem. Interesting. Then there's Golem. One of the golems, trying not to pronounce it like Gollum, found in the non-regate facility. He is discovered lying in the maintenance table in the Golem Bay. His ID is GTM-CM-GOLM. He is asked to be referred to the last bit, which is of course GOLM. Much to his surprise, this ends up being pronounced like Golem anyway. A side note, stands for Golem Type Male Cockney Model Number GOLM. So I wonder what Luna's is, because Luna had one as well. I wonder if they'll actually bring that up. I don't see it. Oh, anyways. Chinese room, thought experiment. We talked about this one at length during the game. The general idea is to pose the question: do intelligent responses indicate actual understanding? Cyril contests that a computer could be programmed to respond intelligently in conversation with humans, so much so that it would seem to be human itself, but that it would not necessarily, or perhaps could not, actually understand what it was saying. Of course, this raises the question, how can we know that human minds are not, in essence, Chinese rooms? Can we really say that we understand the things we say, or are we just simulating understanding? Of course, that brings up the whole idea of the Turing Test, designed to gauge a computer's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior. First developed by British mathematician Alan Turing, the test has 3 participants: a human judge, a human subject, and a machine. The judge engages a conversation with the human and the machine, and the judge cannot determine who is the machine and who is the human. The machine is considered to have passed the Turing Test. When Phi mentions that perhaps she and her companions have been captured to perform a test, she is referring to this. There's the supplementary AB rules, which, as it turned out, were not in every room, which was kind of frustrating because I remember bringing that up during the game a couple of times. That was like, you know, the fact that not everybody knows this is kind of annoying. An acronym for General Purpose Autonomous Labor Electronic Machine. Golems are robots developed and sold by an American corporation called Hephaestus Systems. Some of the units in this facility, however, have had their software significantly enhanced by Zero Senior. A portion of them have also been given ABT, created by Zero Senior, incidentally short for Artificial Biological Tissue. The gist of Golem's somewhat rambling explanation is that the center of thought doesn't necessarily have to reside in the body. In the case of Golem, or Golem, however you want to pronounce that, the self clearly resided in the mainframe and operated the body remotely. Since a self-aware robot could exist this way, he theorized what would prevent humans from doing the same. If humans were actually being controlled by an outside force, then is there any such thing as free will? Which actually comes up in some of the explanations for how this particular game's world mechanics essentially work later on. Wound 1. 4th intercostal left, between the 4th and 5th ribs on the upper left chest. Stab wound caused by a knife or other sharp object. Plane continuous. Wound margins are consistent with a stab wound. Wound angles 1 sharp, 1 blunt. Consistent with a knife wound, most knives have 1 sharp cutting edge and 1 flat edge, which produce this wound profile. Wound 2. The depth of the wound. Cavity will match the width. Okay, so I guess this is just information about the analysis that it makes. With the blunt angle of the wound, usually this corresponds roughly to the width of the knife blade, allowing for the elasticity of the skin. Interesting. Coroner, not to be confused with a coroner. A coroner is a government official who assists law enforcement by investigating the cause of death and dealing with paperwork and logistics surrounding corpses. It can also be used colloquially to refer to someone who performs these duties, whether or not they are actually employed by the government. An autopsy is a post-mortem surgery that examines the body in detail to determine the cause of death and evaluate any diseases or injuries that might be present. It is also super gross. Luminol is an organic compound with the chemical formula C8H7N3O2, so it's a carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxide. When mixed with a hydroxide salt and hydrogen peroxide, it will glow blue when it comes into contact with blood and certain other substances. This property has made it a useful tool in criminal investigations where it can reveal blood stains that have been cleaned up. Keep this in mind next time you're contemplating how to deal with the neighbors listening to death metal at 3 in the morning. At first glance, Kay's bracelet seems to be different from the others. Specifically, it appears to be attached to his suit. Although the design is slightly different, it is not part of his suit. The bracelet is actually attached directly to his wrist, with the other face looking out through a hole in his armor. Just like the other bracelets, it will only come off when he escapes or when his heart stops beating. So I guess it was just set up so that his arm can't quite maneuver it out of that position. Which also brings up the question, if he's worn that suit, or at least not into his entire life, but a good part of his life, I wonder if there was like a separate suit that he wore before that didn't have that opening. Because, I mean, obviously, if he needed to wear the suit, as explained in story terms, there wouldn't have been a need for this bracelet, or maybe he had a different bracelet or something. Generalized amnesia, a memory condition where the sufferer retains knowledge such as language, social common sense, and so on, but memories of their own past and personality disappear. This cause is usually psychological, but in rare cases it can be caused by serious head trauma. Kay suggested that an extremely painful breakup might have been the cause of his condition, but generalized amnesia usually requires a much more powerful trigger than breaking up with someone. In fact, a painful breakup often has the opposite effect. You want desperately to forget, but find that to be impossible, which leads to all sorts of other mental disorders, or so the person sitting behind me says. Aha. Cooked food. Twice cooked pork. Szechuan dish made by pan-frying pork, cabbage, bell peppers, and green onions with doubanjiang or chanmianjiang for flavor. Paella. Okay, these were the dishes that Phi talked about eating at the one point when she was in the pantry. So there's Paella, I think it's pronounced. Spanish dish where one cooks rice, meat, seafood, and vegetables in a shallow pot seasoned with saffron. Nasi goreng, an Indonesian dish made with pan-fried rice seasoned with sambal, manis, and terasi. I'm not sure if those are the right pronunciations, but anyway. Schnitzel, a German dish made by mixing together meat, flour, eggs, and breadcrumbs, and frying the mixture in butter or lard. Yukgaejang, Korean dish, involves stewing beef, vegetables, namu, and powdered chili peppers together very slowly, resulting in meals very spicy. There's borscht, Russian, well, they got from all over the place. Just stew meat and vegetables together. Finished meal is garnished with beets and sour beets. With musical beets. Tom Kha Gai, Thai dish is made by stewing chicken, chili peppers, ginger, and nampula and coconut milk. Very spicy. Chef's pasta, whatever the chef feels like making. Sometimes you don't know what it is until you take a bite. Sometimes you don't even know that. Alright. Zero says before he leaves, a few variations. Trauma, trace, trumpet. Trumpet? I don't remember him saying that one. I remember, what was it? Free the Soul was the, this was the thing that, Dio talks about. Emerging religious organization with rapidly growing memberships, and figures claim their congregation numbers over 1 million in countries across the world. Originally, the organization calls itself Free the Soul of Y, but later dropped of Y to become simply Free the Soul. The founder of the religion is known only as brother. His true identity is a mystery. Only a small number of the highest-ranking members have ever seen him. The doctrine of Free the Soul demands that its adherents separate themselves from the world, free themselves of lust, and release their souls. I think that Dio talked about having an issue with that part. Free themselves from their physical bodies, that they can be purified. Its followers believe that they will be born again as a new race, and that the world will be transformed into a place of equality with no conflict or poverty. Considering how a peaceful world of equality with no conflict or poverty usually plays out in the movies, they seem like a pretty scary group of people. Then there's the Myrmidons, powerful new religious order dedicated to establish a new world order. The Myrmidons are their elite frontline soldiers. The general public knows nothing about them, but their actions have put them on watch lists on intelligence communities across the globe. Rumors say they all have the same face, suggesting they may all be clones of a single person. No one knows where this rumor comes from exactly, but I can tell you that's a very credible source. Yeah, we get this confirmed by Dio himself during the game. Brother is the founder of Free the Soul, though he prefers not to be referred to as such. As a child, he had a younger brother whom he was very fond of. Unfortunately, the worst happened. The younger brother was murdered. Rage and despair filled him, and for 9 days and 9 nights he was consumed by his own misery. On the morning of the 10th day, he had a revelation. Mankind was rife with these base desires, needed to be purified so the new world could come into being. God had spoken to him, given a mission. He dedicated his life to realizing that mission. At the age of 26, established Free the Soul of Y. He claims that Y is a symbol for miracles. Interesting. Some information that isn't revealed in the game. The bracelet put on the left wrist of the 9 participants in the Ambidex game has an important feature that's never mentioned. As soon as it's put on, a needle on the other side activates and inserts itself in the wearer. That doesn't necessarily mean that it injects a drug, only that it activates and pierces the skin. Maybe there's something on the needle or maybe there isn't. All that's certain is that when someone puts on the bracelet, they get poked. No, you don't have any input on this. You're a cat. Meow. Meow your face. I wonder if that's a reference to the fact that I think it's brought up in the game that all of them have Radical 6. So I wonder if that's what it's referring to, and it's just when you discover the gold file at that point in the game, they don't want to give everything away. First, the Ambidex game. Fair to assume that A is short for Ambidex, but also represents the 2 choices, ally and betray. When using the voting machine, each player must choose to ally or betray before the time limit is up. Around the AB game played between members of the group. 2 members pair play against a single solo. You can choose to cooperate or betray. Right, so this is just the explanation of how the AB game works. Penalty, if your BP falls below 0 if you break the rules. Soprol, tubocurine, right, so penalty for failure is death. The voting machine, used by the participants of the AB game, uses a touch panel, is not to be mistaken for an ATM. Sure. The manual of the PEC found the following text. The air in this facility is kept at very high pressure relative to the outside environment to prevent air contaminated by the virus from entering. All persons wishing to exit the facility must proceed through the pressure exchange chamber in order to prevent the spread of the virus and maintain a sterile environment. All persons entering the PEC must wear a specialized hazmat suit. Anyone not wearing a suit will not be allowed to enter the PEC. Of course, as we learn later, it's actually, the air outside the facility isn't contaminated. It's because you're on the moon and there's bad atmosphere is bad. You can't breathe outside on the moon without a spacesuit. But it fits for the narrative that it also conveniently lines up for this as well. Scotch, a type of whiskey made in Scotland. Its unique aroma comes from the peat used in its manufacture. It's this Tim Yogi's favorite drink. He also screams a little Scotch should scratch this itch after returning from work, which annoys Quark. And then root beer float, a well-known drink made by putting a scoop of vanilla ice and cream in some root beer, also known as a black cow. Okay, I've never heard that one before, but Quark has taken to saying root beer floats my boat, which warms Tim Yogi's heart. Sorry, I'm just looking around. Okay, you stay on that chair. You behave. Making sure the cat isn't getting into trouble. We're halfway through. It's taking a little bit longer than I expected, but it's, some of these have been pretty funny, so it's worth going through them. The facility has 2 stories, floor A, floor B. A and B supposedly stand for above and below. It's rumored the floors were actually named after a particular Swedish pop rock group from the 70s, but everyone involved in this project has insisted that is a vile and hurtful lie. Okay. Okay, so this is the journal about the infection of Radical 6. Processing speed is reduced 1 over 0.408 for each second. This is stuff we've learned about in the game. Yeah, they eventually developed powerful urge to commit suicide. One theory holds that disparity in time perception caused the brain to be flooded with massive amounts of information. Right. Suggested target antiviral could kill or at least disable it. Haven't been able to develop one. Right. And then here's the the section that they read from the book. Looks like this is an excerpt from the Journal of Researcher. Due to space constraints, some sections have been cut out. So this is the thing that we read during the game. Jumpy doll. Sounds like someone named the doll Jumpy, but why? Well, as we find out, that's actually a reference to the first game. It could take a while to explain it, but it's something between Akane and Junpei that is integral to the plot of the first game. So hopefully you've at least played the first game already, or went back and watched my videos, so you already know what that's all about. Secret of Quark's hat. Oh yeah, this was never really explained. It's a huge band that just wraps around his head. Is he hiding a pair of Ferengi ears, or maybe he's just a young Lobot? Well, we've seen him without it on, so we know that's not the case. But he's got missiles in there. The sides of the hat are hiding those pods, like you see on helicopters or SAM sites, except the missiles are tiny, and when he gets in trouble, both sides of the hat open up. Just kidding, actually, he just keeps snacks in there. This one sounds plausible. Xelavir, antiviral medication, counteract Radical 6. More specifically, it's an antibody with natural resistance to the virus. It was found and extracted from an individual in 2038, and then replicated using the IG replicator. An Xelavir injection is the only known way to fight alpha radical 6 infection. Treatment pod. Amazing machine that augments an individual's natural ability to heal, strengthens their immune system, accelerates their metabolism, can cure many otherwise incurable diseases. In addition, it can personalize medicines, perform gene therapy, and even repair the effects of radiation damage. What an incredible machine! It's not that incredible if it can't cure Radical 6, you say? Yes, well, I guess you've got a point, but don't worry, it also has a function called cold sleep. Cold sleep uses cast freezing to freeze the entire body without damaging it. That way, even if the disease you have can't be cured, you can be frozen until a cure is found. Cast is actually brought up in the first game by Ace. Again, won't get into it here because you've already read about it if you played 999 or watched the previous set of videos. Cold sleep, generally two types, that involves lowering your internal body temperature, increases your basal metabolic rate, and induces a state similar to hibernation. In other words, your body is still actively functioning, just very slowly. The other sort of cold sleep is the one in this game. It involves freezing your body to essentially lock it in whatever state it was in. Until recently, this is impossible because the expansion and crystallization that took place during the freezing process irrevocably damages human tissue. In the world where this game takes place, however, cast technology has overcome this hurdle and made cryonics a reality. The resuscitation rate is nearly 100%. In fact, you'd be much more likely to die in a plane crash, which means that freezing yourself to visit the future is safer than flying from Tokyo to Milan. Oh. Cast. Oh. Did I not click on the right one? CAS stands for Cells Alive System, allows organic tissue to be safely and non-destructively frozen. It's used to put people in cold sleep. Supercools a subject with a magnetic field, causing them to freeze almost instantly, preventing crystallization. In real life, the problem comes when you try to thaw something out, which also must be done instantly. In this game, however, the technological magic of the treatment pod makes returning from cold sleep possible. So yeah, like, there's a lot of weird, pseudo-science-y, sci-fi stuff in this game, and this is one of the ones that makes a lot of this stuff possible. The past two nonary games, November 2018, 16 children were reported missing. In actuality, 18 children were taken, but 2 were never reported. The person in charge was someone we refer to as H. We find out who that is in the first game. Purpose was to conduct experiments on morphic resonance from the children as test subjects. I won't go into specifics here, but yeah, the short version was this was the first nonary game. Then November 1st, 2027, 9 people participated in this session. They were abducted just as the children had been, but this time H was not in charge. Clover was a participant in both the games, and now she finds herself playing it yet again. So yeah, this is actually just, a couple of years ago. So it's, in this timeline, this is presumably all already happened. So if you know of a Cradle Pharmaceuticals out there somewhere, you should probably investigate them for possible wrongdoing. In the context of this game, espers are people with the ability to access the morphogenetic field. An esper can increase the strength of their signal by being in close proximity to other espers, assuming they are the strongest. The strongest signal will absorb any weak ones nearby and use them to amplify its own strength, sort of like waves. The biggest wave adds the amplitude of smaller waves to its own, covers them up. Which is weird, because in the first game, they had 9... this one. So they did a whole bunch of experiments on morphic resonance. But presumably, if this is correct, the biggest wave adds the amplitude of the smaller waves to its own and covers them up. So I guess it makes sense because they didn't really care if one individual person was able to transmit information. They just wanted it to happen. So I guess that does make sense because they weren't trying to test individuals, they were just trying to test them as a group. The following 9 people were participants in the naughty agreement that Cold War games have been part of. So yeah, these are the 9 people from the first game. Still Clover, just younger and with a jacket. Junpei was the hero of the game that we played in the first game, as we find out is actually also in this game. Junpei's childhood friend, real name Akane Kurashiki, who we find out is so actually all 3 of these were in this game. We never really find out what happens to Snake, Clover's older brother. Presumably he's still back in 2028, so I wonder if it's possible that he'll show up in the 3rd game. I don't know. We won't find out until play it. Kubota, skittish man, gets blown up. Attractive programmer, has 2 daughters. Amnesic detective. I like how Ace, they just say middle-aged man. Presumably we won't see any more of Ace because he got arrested. We might see Snake. I don't know if we'll see Santa or June because presumably it sounds like they went on the run after the first game ends. And we eventually see Akane again. We never really see what happens to Santa, so he might show up, but probably not. 7 Lotus, I don't know, maybe. They might show up. Kubota obviously will not. So, there's a couple of people we might have to be on the lookout for in the 3rd game, but I don't know if any of them will actually show up or not. But we'll have to find out. Neostigmine, a type of carbamate compound which acts as a reversible acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, exciting the parasympathetic nerve. It allows to counteract the effects of the muscle relaxant tubocurarine, delivered with an injection kind of like the one you see here. Ice 9, special form of water with a melting point of 36 degrees Celsius. In other words, it freezes at room temperature. The idea of Ice 9 was originally put forth by the American science fiction author Kurt Vonnegut. His version of Ice 9 has a melting point of 45.8 degrees Celsius. There's actually a rumor who says all the water in Alice's body is actually Ice 9. Who knows whether it's true or not, but if it is, then she has to always keep her body temperature above 30 degrees Celsius. Which would be kind of surprising, because if it had to be above 36 degrees Celsius, that's like something like 90-something degrees Fahrenheit, which means that if this was actually the case, then this entire time they were having to run around in like 90-degree heat inside. Kind of disgusting. They'd all be sweaty messes by the end of it. H is obviously, Gentaro Hongo. He was one of the characters who appeared. He was the person who supervised the kidnapping of the children in the 2018 game. He is the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceuticals and a devoted follower of Free the Soul. Yeah. Morphogenetic field theory. This sort of field where the forms, structures, patterns of everything in reality are stored. Includes abstract things like language, song, thoughts, inspiration, cultures, customs, and ideas. Any information contained, transmitted, or created by matter is held in the morphogenetic field. Huh. It's kind of interesting that like ideas and like abstract concepts are like in this like accessible field thing that you can, connect to in some way. People who can communicate by accessing this field are known as espers. If morphogenetic field theory is true, however, that would mean that in a sense all humans are espers of a sort. Yeah, presumably just the rest of us don't know how to use it. It's an interesting idea. Immunoglobulin is an important part of the body's defense against viruses, bacteria, and other invaders. Identifies and neutralizes certain threats. IG replicator, yeah, it gets its name from that. Factorization, the process of reducing a number to a series of numbers that when multiplied together give the original number. When taken to its logical conclusion, this will yield a list of prime numbers. So, for the purposes of factorization, 1 is not considered prime. So, yeah, breaking down numbers. Prime numbers are ones that are only divided by themselves for 1. Tu fui eu eris, a relatively well-known Latin phrase. It might look like it's talking about a pair of sexy toaster waffles, but it actually means something like what you are, I was, what I am, you will be. Sometimes used as an epitaph, the implication is that the person in question was once alive, like the reader, but that the reader will some day also be dead. Ominous, I guess. But in this case, it kind of means something else, which we found out. The Special Office of Internal Security. This is the group that Alice is a part of. To maintain peace, but their charter authorizes them to arrest, detain, or even kill. Yeah, Alice explains that they investigate domestic foreign terrorists, radical splinter groups, religious organizations. She explains this during the game. Then there's the Prisoner's Dilemma, which is basically kind of what the AB game is built off of, where the idea that this was explained during the game as well, that essentially it's an idea that makes it difficult to figure out a rational solution. In the Prisoner's Dilemma, do you betray your partner or stay silent? In the AB game, however, sometimes the most rational choice isn't always the best one. Yeah, during the course of the game, you actually have to make some quote-unquote incorrect choices to proceed. So, yeah. Interesting stuff. Antimatter bomb uses the energy generated by the collision of particles and antiparticles. Phi explains, imagine two types of matter that are exactly opposite. Oh, right, this was an explanation she also gave during the game. According to quantum theory, their numbers add together to make 0, like 1 and -1. They kind of disappear. They cancel each other out. When they collide, they create pure energy, a lot of it, so an antimatter bomb makes an exploding baby. So in other words, an antimatter bomb makes an exploding baby. Does that make sense? Of course! The bomb uses... No. I could have sworn I clicked on detonator. The device will trigger an antimatter bomb. Technically, it's a remote triggering detonation signal device, but it takes a really long time to type out, so we'll just use detonator. Particular device has two modes, immediate and delay. Pressing the switch when you're less than a meter away from the bomb will trigger the immediate mode, and the bomb will detonate immediately. If you're more than a meter away, it will activate the delay mode, and the bomb will explode 30 minutes later. Yeah. Resulting in a lot of the problems we had in some of the bad endings. Cybernetic arm. Device originally created weaponized, genetically engineered psychic bears. It's actually an arm augmented for online sex chat. Not really, in truth, it's the arm for mysterious libido. Okay, I'm just messing with you. It's actually a mechanical limb that you control with your mind, really. It's a titanium alloy for bones, and those are covered with ABT. Has even artificial nerves, you can feel pain through it just like your arm. It even has veins that connect to the rest of your body, so if you inject medicine into a cybernetic arm, it'll flow the rest of your body. Big part of Sigma's backstory during the game. The necklace Luna's never seen without has a cage containing a bluebird hanging from it. If you twist the key on the bottom, it plays music. Someone special gave it to her as a gift, and she says it reminds her of the following lesson: search for happiness whenever you can, because the search itself is what will make you happy. Then there's the laws of robotics, created by science fiction author Isaac Asimov, play a large part in his robot series. Robot may not injure a human being or through an action allow a human to harm. Robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings. Separate orders would conflict with the first law, and then a robot must protect its own existence so long as it does not conflict with the first or second. Later on, Asimov developed another preceding rule known as the Zeroth Law, which appeared in his story Robots and Empire. Zero, a robot may not come to harm humanity, or by an action allow humanity to come to harm. Clearly, the Zeroth Law has priority over the first three, so the first law would have the unwritten addendum, except where this would conflict with the Zeroth Law. Whether or not 016 was aware of this law is unclear, but in any event, 016 did act in accordance with it. Yeah. So the whole thing about her ending where she freaks out is kind of partially due to this additional concept, where it was like, yeah, you have to... We couldn't have explained all of it, of course, because that would have spoiled a lot of what's happening in the game, but essentially that's sort of the explanation for why she had to do, or why she was programmed to do a lot of the things that she did. Really? For some reason, Sigma, or perhaps the author, seems to be unnaturally obsessed with swimsuits. Why is that? Was he involved in a horrible swimsuit accident, now repressed in his youth? Did he have a crush in high school on a girl on the swim team who put her Olympic aspirations ahead of any possible romance? Is he just a perv? The world may never know. I have a theory. Anyways, personal password input device can be used in emergency to deactivate the antimatter bombs hidden throughout the facility. It doesn't really have any official name. Sometimes it's just called the designated computer terminal, but sometimes it's just the input device. It has a small QWERTY keyboard beneath an LCD display. On top is a large black cable which can be attached to the bomb you wish to deactivate. Entering the correct password on the keyboard will stop the detonation. The fact that you find one of these in the safes should be a clue that like something wacky is going on here, considering that Dio presumably didn't bring it with him. In a general sense, antimatter reactor is a system that generates electricity from matter-antimatter reactions. The facility uses hydrogen, antihydrogen. The reactions power a turbine, which generates an energy and powers everything in the facility. Looks like a gigantic octopus, but it's definitely not edible no matter how you cook it. I'm guessing that these are basically the things. That's what they look like, the ones that were all around Earth that they ended up blowing up during the, was it April 13th, 2029? Curiously, April 13th is also an important date for a certain other group of fans that you may be aware of if you're watching this video and know about some of the other things that I keep up with. But we won't get into that. Popular type of antimatter, what was this? Oh, antihydrogen atom. An antihydrogen atom has the opposite, one antiproton and one positron. In November 2010, the CERN, the European Organization of Nuclear Research, issued a statement announcing that they had captured an antihydrogen atom. They claimed that they had gathered 38 of them, in fact, and managed to hold them in a special container for 0.2 seconds. Less than 6 months later, in June 2011, they managed to capture several more antihydrogen atoms and contain them for more than 1,000 seconds. Although the creation and storage of antimatter is still a difficult obstacle, these results suggest that antimatter reactors could someday be a possibility. Huh. Be interesting to read up on more on what's happened since then, because I know they, there was a big thing that, they had going, was it a few years ago, looking for another couple of specific particles. But you can look up that stuff. TNT is used as a reference point when discussing the power of explosive devices. Specifically, explosive power is usually described by tonnage. The amount of energy 1 ton of TNT produces is approximately 4.184 gigajoules, means an exploding device with an output of 1 megaton generates 4.184 petajoules. TNT stands for Trinidad and Tobago? No, it's trinitrotoluene. That's it. It's one of the most common explosives, which is how it came to be a reference point. A kilogram has 4.184 megajoules of energy, but a kilogram of butter has 30 megajoules. Butter is some straight dangerous stuff. Yeah, but you can't explode butter. If you could, that'd be crazy. E equals mc squared, Einstein's famous equation, energy is equal to mass times the speed of light squared, describes how much energy you'd get by annihilating matter with antimatter, but also carries the interesting implication that with enough energy, you could theoretically create matter. But yeah, so if you could explode butter, it'd be really powerful. 63 terajoules amount of energy you get by combining 350 milligrams each of matter and antimatter. This number using the equation, what do you get when you convert 700 milligrams to kilograms? Then with the speed of light, you convert that to meters, you get 3.0 times 10 to the 8th, 3 billion meters per second. If you square that, you get 9.0 times 10 to the 16th, and then if you multiply that times the original mass, you get 63 trillion. I find it's funny that they have Alice come in and do that, because she's like the math genius of the group. The 4B graffiti. Yeah, it appears to have been written in some sort of weird paint. Latin and phrase that translates to remember death, mortality. Nineth refers to ninth, but seems to have been spelled wrong, likely on purpose, because it's an anagram like the words on the wall on the floor of a warehouse. If it is, what does this one mean? Trying to decode that is kind of insane, and if you manage to do it without finding out the spoiler that's contained in one of the videos in this series, you're amazing. Hourglass. The display in the background is actually a 4-second timer. It doesn't have much practical use except for maybe really impatient people. If you're at a restaurant waiting for your food to come out, for instance, hey, how long are you going to make me wait? I've already flipped this hourglass 100 times. Technically, 100 times would only be 400 seconds, which is 6 minutes and 40 seconds, but saying 100 times is much more dramatic and therefore much more likely to get a desirable response from the wait staff. Gentle points, a measure of how much of a gentleman you are. Somewhere deep in the United Kingdom is an organization that tracks all gentlemen, determining their caliber based off an ancient Byzantine collection of rules and guidelines. Every year during the spring, a representative of the organization conducts a cursory investigation of each member's behavior, for at least appears to, and then awards gentle points based on what they saw. The following formula: old ladies escorted across the street, top hats owned, puzzles solved, money given to gentlemen tracking or... Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Small survival knife has Myrmidon stamped in the flat of the blade. We learn the statistics of it from the autopsy. Blood on it, but whose blood? We also learn that as well. The floor B hallway lock. Several of the hallways on floor B use special locks indicated on the map by arrows. The far side of each arrow is a lever. Pulling these levers will unlock the locks. Once this has been done, you can explore the entire area to your leisure. Yeah, we see this on some of the routes, where they'll stop and pull the lever and it opens the door, and that presumably allows them to go back and forth between those areas. But not all of them, curiously enough. The law of cause and effect, specifically that a cause must precede every effect. Quantum level, however, things aren't quite as immutable. The principle of quantum superposition holds that any physical system, such as an electron, exists at least partially in all of its theoretical states or configurations, but when measured gives a result corresponding to only one of them. A classic example is the double slit experiment, where light appears to behave as both a wave and particle. One of the interesting implications of this is that, in a sense, you are influencing the past. By observing a system, you are defining the cause and effect you witness, and in a way, altering the past. Normally I would comment here that the quantum level is where shit gets real, but given that the nature of this phenomenon, it seems like it would be more accurate to say that the quantum level is where shit gets unreal. Haha, very funny. Knox's Ten Commandments. Ronald Knox, a mystery writer in the UK, published the following as his rules from writing a mystery novel. The criminal must be mentioned early on. All supernatural or preternatural agencies are ruled out. No more than one secret room or passage. No hitherto undiscovered poisons may be used, nor any appliance which will need a long scientific explanation. Well, I guess they're not really long scientific explanations for this game. No one with extrasensory perception or similar powers can appear. About that, no accident must ever help the detective, nor must he ever have an unaccountable intuition which proves to be right. Well, the detective must not commit the crime. The detective must declare any rules he may discover. The stupid friend of the detective, the Watson, must conceal nothing from the reader. Twin brothers and doubles generally must not appear unannounced. Well... technically this is more than just a mystery novel, so, you know, sometimes you gotta know when to break the rules. 3 different types of card keys, generally found in the safes in each room and used to open the AB gate. Without them, you can't open the AB gate to play the AB game, which means you can't play BP. In other words, getting one of these cards is the first step in your escape. Sun key is used for the first, Moon for the second, and the Star key for the third. Slingshot, elementary device, uses rubber to launch a small projectile, frequently used by adolescent ne'er-do-wells. Can be used as a necklace, but this is not recommended. Yeah, Test site mystery. The site in question was for a simulated manned mission to Mars held in the Nevada desert. On New Year's Eve in 2028, the audio logs from the simulation contain a woman's voice, assuming to be one of the test subjects, saying the following: 6 of us are dead. Counting myself, there are only 3 left. I guess you could say I killed them. No, that's quite right. Not just them, not these 6. All of them, all 6 billion. Most evidence seems to suggest this was the beginning of the Radical 6 outbreak, and that the Nevada facility was the epicenter of the pandemic, which we will probably find out more about in the next game. Termite. General term used for the insects of the family of Termitoidae of the cockroach order Blatodia. That's right, even though there are some kinds called white ants, termites aren't even the same family as ants, they're in the cockroach family instead. Also, king crabs are in the hermit crab order, and the remora is in the perciformes order. What does this have to do with anything? Anyways, have a nice trouble. There it is. Have a nice tragedy. Have a nice trust. Conjunction simply means that two celestial bodies appear near one another in the sky. Using the context of our solar system refers to the position where a given celestial body is aligned with the sun. For example, when Mars is on the opposite side of the sun from Earth, it's considered to be in conjunction with Earth. Well, wouldn't that mean, like, it means that two celestial bodies appear near one another? Well, if it's on the opposite side of the sun, doesn't that mean it's not near the Earth? Like, Mercury and Venus, which orbit closer to the sun than the Earth does, have two types. When they are hidden on the other side of the sun, this is referred to as a superior conjunction. When they are lined up on the near side, it's an inferior conjunction. I don't know, that's weird, but not really necessary to understand. Picture that Tenmyoji was holding, the subject is the girl is Akane Kurashiki. Akane was one of the people who appeared in the game's sister title, childhood friend of Junpei. That title is main character. In 999, she was 21 years old. This picture was taken 9 years before then when she was 12. Look on the left side of the picture. If you look closely, it almost looks like there's a man grinning in the background. Do you see him? Don't worry if it seems a little strange. The spirit medium has told us that the person in this picture is a guardian spirit who's looking after her. He must have shown up here because he'd heard what sort of destiny she had in store and decided to see how she was doing. Okay, I didn't really see that, but sure. Alright, last page. Minkowski space, a way of describing reality as the fourth dimension of time to the three dimensions of space, described by German mathematician Hermann Minkowski, and therefore bears his name. It's also the name of a ski resort for miniature cows. Gotta fit a few more jokes in here before the end. Lagomorph, the scientific name for the order to which rabbits belong, and Zero the Third's actual name. And for some reason, we had to include this picture one more time. Tenmyoji and Alice, when they were split up at the red, blue, and green chromatic doors, Tenmyoji told Alice there was something he had to tell her. That something was, of course, his identity, and that he already knew all about Alice and Ice 9, and not because he'd heard about it from Clover. Okay, yeah, so this is actually... This is definitely something that, is important to the game, that you kind of figure out once you know who Tenmyoji is, but yeah. So then with Clover, the second round of the AB game, after going through the purple and green doors, Clover as a solo was heard to say the following: "What the heck did you mean with all that? It's not fair if you're telling the truth." So what had Tenmyoji said to her? The same thing he had meant to say to Alice, of course. He told her who he was. That simple fact shook Clover's resolve and made her vote ally. Probably hadn't been his original intention to betray her, but after thinking about Quark's safety, he'd probably felt he had no choice and picked betray. Which was probably really rough, considering it was like, oh yeah, here's this guy, and... I don't know, because, like, yeah, if Tenmyoji actually told Clover that it's like, oh yeah, it's me, Junpei, that also means he would have had to explain that she's actually 45 years in the future, so she was kind of, like, screwed, which we found out in the little after credits we saw in the last video. But, apparently there's some way for them to get back, so, I don't know. A can stand for after and B for before, but they also stand for anima and body. Everything that happened in this facility was part of the AB project. The mystery of Phi. So who was Phi? There are a few clues scattered throughout the story, but nothing conclusive. Perhaps the truth will be revealed at the third game, Nevada test site. Deactivation passwords. A little something more about the bomb deactivation passwords. Those passwords, they aren't just gibberish. There's something hidden in each one. I can only give you one hint. +1. Good luck. There's a lot more to the story, but I think we'll stop the secret archives here. Thank you for playing. We hope you enjoyed the game. Huh. +1. Well, I actually still have the files here, so... LXA QNS GDQ BQZ RGJ DXR let's see. 0 was the one, the 0 password was the one we got from Dio in his ending. I think the number 1 was the one we got from 0 Senior. I think the 2 and 3 ones we got from Dio as well. I just can't remember where we got them. E, Q, D... DYR... NTK... and then the third one was LX. It is weird that both of them, the 0 and 3 bombs, start with the same 2 letters. XQ, LHC, NMR, MR. Well, +1, I'm guessing it means the next letter, so LM, M, Y, B, R, O, T. Oh, my brother. B is C, Q is R, C is A, R is S, G is H, J is I, D is E, X is Y, R is S. Oh, J is K. Crash keys. E is F. Q is R. D is E. Oh, I bet this is free. Y is Z. S. Freezy soul. My brother, crash keys, freezy soul, and then my R, L, M, H, I, Myrmidons. Huh. Neat. So, yeah. One final little secret Easter egg as we wrap things up here. Pretty cool. Alright, well, that is gonna do it. Added one more extra hour of reading all that stuff. I don't think there's anything else I could possibly do with this game at this point. I think that is literally everything. So, once again, I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed every little last bit that we mined out of it and fun that we had with it. But now definitely we are going to be moving on to Zero Time Dilemma. And that's going to do it. So, yep. Oh, wait, no, I didn't mean to do that. Ah, no. Let's see this one more time. Okay, for reals this time. Let's call this a wrap. Hope y'all had fun. I'm getting out of here. You have a good evening. We'll see you next time.